The steady rise of China's naval capabilities has decisively shifted Japanese defense strategy towards strengthening their navy. After 6 decades of unwavering pacifism, Japan's self-defense force is undergoing a historic transformation. With their new counterattack doctrine, they are gearing up for a war that could unfold on mainland China.
Hajime! Leave me alone!
Japan is projected to increase military spending by almost 60% by 2027 in order to beef up their navy to defend Taiwan and fight China on the high seas. Thanks to Conflict of Nations for sponsoring this video. Conflict of Nations is a free online PvP strategy game. Choose a real country to lead, engage in epic battles, and become the Julius Caesar of modern global warfare. But make sure you handed in all your assignments, because games can take up weeks to complete. Unless you bring your classmates and colleagues to forge alliances and dominate the game. It's cross-platform, so you play with the same account on both PC and mobile. Click on the link in the description to get 13,000 gold and 1 month of premium subscription for free. Offer only available for 30 days, so don't lose time. My friends, welcome to the headquarters. Today we'll take a look at Japan. And at least in this video, these huge Japanese shafts that are sticking out won't be blurred like in some, anyway. Throughout the Cold War until very recently, Japan's posture was purely defensive. Even their military was called Japan Self Defense Forces, or JSDF. However, everything changed with the growth of the Chinese Navy. And by December 2022, the administration of Prime Minister Kishida is now prioritizing a new doctrine laid out in these 3 documents. Check out this article from the United States Naval Institute News. Japan releases $53 billion defense budget focused on shipbuilding. Of course, Japan could simply purchase more weapons and military equipment, but the key is acquiring the right type of equipment for your country's strategy. For the Japanese High Command, before purchasing any additional weapons, they started by reflecting on how they plan on fighting China. Option 1 was subduing the enemy with manga, but that backfired hard. So option 2 relied on a purely defensive strategy and just shooting down any incoming missiles. For example, as part of its missile defense, Japan has acquired 34 Patriot Advanced Capability 3 missile launchers from the US. Their goal was to destroy missiles during their terminal phase just before they reach major cities. Japan's Air Self-Defense Force also deployed 2 PAC-3 systems on Ishigaki and Yonaguni Islands right next to Taiwan. Another example of this doctrine is the 2 Aegis ashore radar installations the US built for Japan in 2017. Those include SPY-1 radars and a battery of standard missile 3s. However, the Japanese government expected that the maintenance cost of the systems would amount to $2.15 billion over a 30-year period. However, the latest estimates projected the cost to increase to $4.1 billion, and this could increase even more in the coming years. Tokyo did not even account for the cost of testing these missiles, which amounted to $100 million USD per launch. All in all, a very expensive project for a purely defensive doctrine that would mainly protect US military bases in Japan. No, for real, they were gonna get scammed, as this would mainly benefit US geopolitical goals. So in 2020, Japan cancelled this plan. At the same time, even if Japan's defense spending was to reach the 2% GDP goal by 2030, it would only be equal to 1/5 of China's military expenditures. With every passing year, the gap will increase, and China's anti-access area denial capabilities are expected to further improve. If Japan was to face a missile barrage from China through brute force tactics, using waves of cheap missiles and decoys, Japanese radars and air defense would be overwhelmed. This is when China would launch its real missiles. And to make things even more difficult, the archipelago's land area is so compact that all key military infrastructures would be concentrated. Theoretically, all these strategic installations could be neutralized in a preemptive strike. In other words, fighting a purely defensive war would cause great damage to Japan. This is where Japanese strategists came up with option 3, the idea of the counterattack, a doctrine meant to discourage China from attacking in the first place, as Japan's counterstrike would be so painful, and that can only be achieved by increasing Japan's projection of force. Japan already had 8 guided missile destroyers or DDGs, all of them integrated with the United States Aegis Combat System, which are said to provide exceptional capabilities for tracking and intercepting missiles and other aerial threats. Quick note, the Japan Maritime Self Defense Force uses the official term destroyers despite some larger ships being closer to cruisers. Here are the 2 latest DDGs that Japan has built. The JS Maya, commissioned on the 19th of March 2020, and the JS Haguro, commissioned on the 19th of March 2021. The construction of both of these took exactly 3 years to be completed. Each of these Maya-class destroyers are operated by a crew of around 300. This is where we have to go on a little detour. Currently, crew size is a major concern for the Maritime Self Defense Force, since the country faces serious recruitment problems. So building ships with a smaller crew became a necessity. Hence this headline from the USNI News, Japan to build 2 20,000-ton missile defense warships. In order to replace the now cancelled land-based Aegis ashore ballistic missile defense systems, the Japanese Navy decided to add another 2 Aegis system-equipped vessels, commonly called ASEV destroyers. I'll just call them ASEV. If everything goes according to plan, by 2030, Japan should be equipped with 10 modern Aegis weapon systems. This would be a clear advantage for Japan. Instead of stationary missile defense systems, easy to target, they will have moving ones that can also carry devastating strikes directly on Chinese soil. And let's be honest, nobody mentions this, but these warships could even intervene to defend Taiwan if necessary. All this fits right into the Japanese counterattack doctrine. To me, the main reason why Japan sailed away from the American Aegis ashore program is because Japan is preparing to defend Taiwan with its Maritime Self Defense Force. Perhaps in the near future, we could expect Japan to build a naval base close to Taiwan. According to the Japanese Ministry of Defense, these new ASEVs will be 210 meters long, 40 meters wide, with a standard displacement of 20,000 tons. In terms of manpower, these new vessels will be manned by 240 crew members each. So these new ASEVs will be twice as big as Maya-class destroyers, but operated with 20% less sailors. According to an article by Japanese newspaper Mainichi Shimbun, building of the first ASEV will begin in fiscal year 2024. Now in the heart of the arsenal of these formidable vessels lies 128 VLS cells, or vertical launch system. When you have 128 VLS cells on a warship, it means there are 128 individual launch tubes designed to hold and launch missiles. With the 2 new ASEVs, Japan will increase its firepower by 256 launch tubes. These VLS cells can fire 3 types of missiles. For air and ballistic missile defense, there are the SM-3 Block 2A and the SM-6 missiles, which are the workhorses of the US Navy's weapon systems. The standard Missile 3 is a surface-to-air missile used to intercept short to intermediate range ballistic missiles during the mid-course of their flight path. Meanwhile, the standard Missile 6 is a multi-mission missile capable of both anti-air and anti-ship strikes, as well as ballistic missile defense. Japan also equipped its ASEV with Tomahawk cruise missiles for precision strikes. The Tomahawk Block 5 has a max range of over 1,600 kilometers, meaning the entirety of the coast of China will be within reach of Japanese missiles. But also, surprise surprise, China's inland installations. So the Japanese government has decided to purchase a first batch of 500 Tomahawks. On top of that, the 8 already existing JMSDF Aegis destroyers will be refurbished by fiscal year 2027 so that they can be equipped with the tactical Tomahawk weapons control system from Lockheed Martin. Truth is allied because the ASEF will be able to fire a 4th type of missile. Japan knows it cannot only rely on foreign supplies of ammunition, so the new Aegis destroyers will also be equipped with Type 12 anti-ship missiles, manufactured in Japan by Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. The latest upgrade will extend the range of the Type 12 SSM from 200 to 900 kilometers and facilitate logistics of the Japanese military as it can be launched from air, ground, and sea. The latest modification of the Type 12 SSM will also reduce the radar cross-section to ensure stealth performance. According to Forbes Japan, the JSDF currently holds 1,000 Type 12 missiles. However, the newspaper worries that if Japan enters a conflict with the same intensity as in Ukraine, in the best case scenario, all Type 12 SSMs will be used up within 2 months. Like I mentioned earlier, what's great about the new Type 12 SSM is that it could be modified into an air-launched variant for some of Japan's 155 Mitsubishi F-15J Eagle fighter aircraft. The Japan Maritime Self Defense Force is also planning to replace its aging destroyers with Mogami-class frigates. Unlike other Japanese warships, those frigates will be smaller, stealthier, and highly automated. Thus, they can be operated with a crew of only 90 instead of 220 sailors like the older Asagiri-class destroyers. The new Mogami-class frigates will be the stealthiest ships of the JMSDF due to their smooth angle design meant to deflect radar waves, as well as radar-absorbing coatings and paint. Initially, Japan had planned to build 22 of those. However, due to the construction of 2 A-7 warships, they settled for 10 new 4,500-ton frigates that will specialize in long-range missiles and enhance anti-submarine warfare. The last Mogami-class frigate to be commissioned was the JS Mikuma on the 7th of March 2023. The 5th frigate, JS Yahagi, is expected to be commissioned by December 2023. Another one is scheduled for March 2024. Number 7 for December 2024. Essentially 2 new Mogami-class frigates every year. Japanese shipbuilding is so efficient that they can push out a frigate within 3 years, whereas the US and France would need 6. Each one of these frigates will be equipped with 2 remote-controlled weapon stations, ideal to destroy incoming unmanned surface vehicles, and a 5-inch Mk-45 Mod 4 naval gun. On top of that, 2 Mk-141 missile canisters for a launch capacity of 8 Type 17 anti-ship missiles, and a simplified sea mine laying system launched from the rear ramp beneath the helideck. Yeah, because this frigate can also carry a Mitsubishi SH-60L anti-submarine helicopter for air defense. Mogami-class frigates are armed with 16 Mk-41 VLS intended for Type 3 surface-to-air missiles. It will also be able to launch an undisclosed number of Type 12 torpedoes. That means that Japan will add 10 modernized frigates and 10 Aegis destroyers to the ballistic missile defense of the archipelago, all the while increasing strike capabilities on China, without even talking about the projected 9 Taigai-class submarines equipped with lithium-ion batteries allowing for greater autonomy. The JMSDF also purchased 2 V-22 Osprey helicopters from the US. It's a versatile troop transport that enhances the flexibility of naval forces. One of them landed for the first time on the helicopter destroyer JS Ise. Japan plans to buy another 15 V-22s. At the same time, Tokyo plans to upgrade its 2 existing Izumo-class helicopter carriers to allow them to embark F-35B short takeoff and vertical landing jets. Yes, because Japan planned to acquire a total of 147 F-35s, split between 125 Model A and 42 Model Bs, thus essentially turning them into aircraft carriers. Allegedly, Japan wanted to rename them Pearl Harbor and Bataan, but for some reason the US said no. All these improvements and upgrades don't mean Japan doesn't have any challenges to overcome. For example, increasing the production of Japanese-made Type 12 surface-to-ship missiles is costly, as the missiles cost $700,000 per unit. Another problem is that it takes 2 to 3 years to train operators for these missile systems. systems, which is complicated with the country's current lack of manpower. Japan can build as many warships as they want. A shortage of qualified sailors will severely undermine the capabilities of the Japan Maritime Self Defense Force. Like many other nations in the world, Japan depends on an all-volunteer force for its military. However, recruitment levels often fail to meet national targets. Here, the Wall Street Journal wrote, "For Japan's aging military, the future is a gray area." In 2018, the number of new recruits to the Japanese Maritime Self Defense Force was below 60% of its annual goal. With the country's low birth rate and aging population, the situation is even more critical. The Japanese Navy only accounts for 20% of the overall force, despite being arguably the most important branch to defend Japan. One quick fix could be to reassign army servicemen into the Navy. To this effect, Japan already transferred 2,000 personnel from the ground forces to the JMSDF, but they will need to transfer at least another 10,000. Ever since Prime Minister Kishida's plan to increase defense spending was revealed to the public, the word conscription has been spreading on Japanese social media like wildfire. Many believe that the next step after increasing defense spending is a revival of military service, which, as you can imagine, is extremely controversial. Japan has not relied on conscription since World War II. As of now, the public is against military service as it violates Articles 13 and 18 of the Constitution, which prohibits involuntary service into the armed forces. Put simply, the majority of the Japanese people are not grasping the dangerous geopolitical situation the archipelago is facing, with the simultaneous threats of Russia, North Korea, and China. Conflict of Nations is a free online PvP strategy game happening in a modern global warfare. Engage in epic battles and take over the world. Click on the link in the description to get 13,000 gold and 1 month of premium subscription for free. Offer only available for 30 days, so don't lose time.